In the many years of Fortnite, there's been almost 200 individual FNCS winners, some of which are forgettable where others will be known for years to come. So today we're going to be going over the most memorable ones who have retired and try to find out where they are nowadays. Starting off this video, we need to talk about the GOAT himself, Mitro. As you all know, he would have one of the most iconic FNCS wins back in Chapter 2 Season 4 with Mongrel and Tayson. After this win though, his placements would only decrease. In fact, he would only make one other grand finals since that win. But ultimately, in Chapter 3 Season 2, he would quit the game. So where is he now? Well, it's really hard to tell since he rarely posts on social media, with his last tweet being a few months ago, his last YouTube video over 2 years ago, and the same with his last stream and Instagram post. We do know he made a brief return to playing the game in the OG season, and did actually play a recent solo victory cup on December 22nd, 2023, which was in Chapter 5. And the only hint we have is from a short Mongrel clip in late 2022 saying he's doing Wi-Fi money stuff, which is not very helpful. So we can only really speculate. He made more than enough money off the game to live comfortably, $830,000 of it being from just tournaments. So my guess is he's probably just living his life, probably doing something online to make money, then spending his time with family and friends. Now for Mitro, it was very hard to tell what actually happened to him, but for our next player, it's very easy. And that's the 6x FNCS champion, Arkhram. During his competitive career in Fortnite, he was hands down one of the best players in the NA West region. Like I said, he had won 6 different FNCSs, as well as getting 5th in the Duo World Cup, totaling his earnings to almost $800,000. He would actually retire from the game in Chapter 3 Season 2, ending his career with a 3rd in FNCS. Now, a lot of the time, whenever a pro in esports quits, they tend to leave gaming for the most part, or try their luck in a different game. And well, the last one is exactly what he's trying to do in Valorant. Ever since quitting though, he really slowed down on social media, only really being active on Twitter, but he does stream every now and again on Twitch. Now, his journey to become pro hasn't gone as well as somebody like Benji Fishy. However, he is performing at a very high level, currently competing in the Valorant Challengers League, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is the league right under VCT, where all the top teams play at. So all we can really do is wait to see if he becomes a tier 1 for the second time. And speaking of multi-FNCS champs, we gotta bring up Reverse 2K next. Also, to make things more clear, to clarify as a player who quit for this video, they had to have not played the most recent FNCS. So even if they stopped playing for a while then came back, it doesn't count. Reverse has been competing in Fortnite for an extremely long time. In fact, he first got his name out there during the skirmish days, making over $140,000 in just 2018. By the way, if you're enjoying the video, make sure to subscribe because only 6% of you watching are, so double check. But even back then, he was super underrated. Eventually, as you all know, he would give Miro and Day, who at the time were not known at all, a shot in FNCS. From there, they would win 2 FNCS titles and get a 4th. In the end though, they would split, and Reverse would actually quit the game right at the beginning of Chapter 3. He did make a brief comeback towards the end of Chapter 3 and towards the end of Chapter 4, but since then has stopped competing. However, he still earned over $350,000 throughout his career. Since quitting the game, he has gone down a very interesting road. Reverse still streams almost every single day, mainly playing Apex Legends and Valorant. However, his viewership has drastically decreased from a few hundred to around 25. And weirdly, now on YouTube, for the past 5 months, he's only uploaded gambling videos. But with that being said, he's also been really focusing on his health and fitness, and it seems like he's really enjoying his life at the moment. Continuing the streak of multi-FNCS champs, we got a player that most people don't even remember having a single win, and that's Avery. His career has been very interesting with many highs and lows, and for most seasons, he wasn't even talked about at all, even though he had proved himself over and over again. The first time Avery would win was back in Chapter 2 Season 1 squads with Stable Ronaldo, Unknown Army, and Kez. But his second win wouldn't be until over 2.5 years later in Chapter 3 Season 3 duos with Commandment. But eventually, just 2 seasons later, he would retire in Chapter 4 Season 1, earning $275,000 throughout those years. Now, it's very hard to figure out what he is doing nowadays since throughout his time, he was never really active on social media, and posts would only get more spread out afterwards. We do know he made a brief comeback this year in February to play a cash cup, but other than that, it's hard to say. He posted a few pictures on Twitter where it seems like most others on this list, he's just living his life. Avery was pretty much impossible to find out, and the same would be said for his teammate Commandment. Back in Chapter 2, he dominated with 4 seconds in a row with Edgy and Scented in trios, then going on to win that FNCS with Avery in Chapter 3. Unlike Avery though, he wouldn't actually quit until Chapter 4 Season 2. However, he did make a brief comeback during the OG season like many players on this list. But just like Avery, he has also been very silent on his socials ever since quitting. In fact, he hasn't even said a single word online and just didn't even post anything about him retiring. He seemingly just randomly stopped playing one day. So this one is just going to be up to your imagination. Let's move back to a player we actually know about, and that's Teeq. His Fortnite journey was very interesting, playing since day 1 but not making his first grand finals until Chapter 2 Season 5. Luckily for him though, that very next season, Queasy and Trulex would give him a shot, and he would not disappoint with them winning that season in his second grand finals ever. But after this, his placements would never be the same. In fact, after Season 8, he wouldn't make a single finals for almost an entire year. But eventually, he would quit at the beginning of Chapter 5 after making over $150,000 from the game. Before he quit, and since then, Teeq has been extremely focused on his fitness grind, and just seeing it for yourself, he is absolutely shredded now. With that being said though, this year he has streamed a handful of times playing Fortnite, so it wouldn't really surprise me to see him make a comeback. Continuing with players from EU, I can't not mention an OG GOAT that many people have forgotten about who's earned over $550,000 from the game. That's Nayte. He first got his name out there after dominating the World Cup, earning almost $400,000 from solos. Fast forwarding to Chapter 2 Season 2 duos FNCS, he would take home the crown with Andalex. Throughout the rest of his career, he would have a few other decent placements, but ultimately would retire in Chapter 3 Season 1. Like most players who switch esports, he moved to Valorant with the hopes to go pro one day, even reaching #1 Radiant at one point. Just like Arkhram, he is currently competing in the Valorant Challengers League with the hopes of going on the big stage one day. With that being said though, he did make a brief return to Fortnite at the end of Chapter 4 during the OG season, however he went back to Valorant right after. Speaking of players who started off early, next up we got Teeq. Not many people remember this, but he actually qualified for the Solo World Cup Finals. And after that, his placements were pretty good in FNCS, but it was when he trioed with Seti and Kami, those placements would only increase, until finally they'd win in Chapter 2 Season 8. But heading into Chapter 3, things would change for the worse. In Season 1, he did well with the 20th, but in Season 2 and 3, he would completely miss out on making the Grand Finals. This must have really demotivated him because just like Commandment, he's completely disappeared, not even announcing his departure from the game. And with his last post online being a tweet from August of 2022, a few weeks before his last tournament, unfortunately again, it's pretty much impossible to say what he's been up to nowadays. But I'm sure he's doing very well for himself with the almost $500,000 he's earned. Keeping the streak of players that seemingly disappeared, we have the most popular one by far, Zayt. We've had multiple OG players on this list and he is easily one of the best, originally starting off by going absolutely crazy in the skirmish and World Cup days. But ultimately it would be in Chapter 2 Season 2 duos where he would finally win with his long-term duo Saf. Ultimately though, he would announce his departure from competing in January of 2021, but wouldn't actually have his last tournament until the FNCS All-Stars Showdown. After quitting, he said he was going to stay in the scene and start making coaching type of videos and stream way more often, but sadly that didn't happen. He did compete a tiny bit in Valorant, but after that, it seems like he's retired gaming as a whole. Over the next few years, he would tweet every once in a while, but the posts would be pretty random. And at the time of recording, his last tweet was well over 1 year ago. And it looks like nobody really knows what he's doing. Even Saf, like I mentioned, who was a long-term friend and teammate, has no idea what he's up to. One thing is for sure though, and that he will always be a Fortnite legend, making over 1.2 million from the game throughout the years. I just mentioned Saf, so of course he's on this list. His placements for the majority of his career were all with Zayt, and after he quit, Saf continued to play but wouldn't see too much success until eventually he would take a break in Chapter 3, but came back towards the end to play with Faxity for a season just to make some content. But after this, he pretty much quit comp again. Since then, he's continued to stream every once in a while, mainly playing Valorant like most Fortnite pros who quit do. But he also did end up starting his very own arm sleeve brand. However, nowadays, it doesn't look like he's promoting it at all, so I'm assuming he's given up on it now. But since then, he has also moved back to the West Coast to be closer with family, and as of now, it looks like he's enjoying the $1.2 million he's earned, and it seems like he's traveling the world from his recent posts on Twitter. Once again, we gotta continue the streak of OG players. We have someone that you probably don't know has been competing since day one, and that's Slacks. Early on, he would make the Duo World Cup finals, and afterwards in FNCS, he would do pretty well, but it wasn't until he trioed with Acorn and Jack that he'd reach his full potential. They did well in Season 4, then Season 5 came out with that win. In the rest of Chapter 2, he would have more good placements, but in Chapter 3, it would all go downhill, only making a single Grand Finals that entire year. Because of this, he would slowly start playing less and less until ultimately retiring at the end of Chapter 3. Unfortunately though, like a few others on this list, he was never really on social media, only posting his competitive achievements. However, at the beginning of 2024, he would tweet that he needed help making a map on UEFN. So with that being said, there is some evidence that he is just trying to grind creative maps and attempting to make a bag off of them, but I find that highly unlikely since it's very hard to get a map to do well. With most Fortnite pros not really posting anything about their life, it's really hard to actually figure out what they are doing nowadays. So if there's something I missed, please comment down below what it is. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe, and also go check out my new creative map Tile Wars. I know for a fact you'll enjoy it. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your days. Peace out.